is 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey, space friends! This is the Launch Sequence Podcast, a podcast looking at the development and enjoyment or disenjoyment of Star Citizen, among other space games. Every week, I like to bring on a guest who creates some kind of compelling content and I think offers an interesting perspective into the game. This week, I've got with me an old friend, probably one of my oldest friends in Star Citizen, doing the photography stuff and the org stuff back in the day. TheSpaceCoder, another YouTuber on the game. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Flattered that you think my content is compelling.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I feel you get the short end of the stick on YouTube sometimes. I see your videos and I'm like, this should have way more views.
Yeah, I think it's a length thing because YouTube likes to push longer videos because they can like slap in more ads. And with most of my stuff being under 10 minutes, I think, it gets the lower end of the curve.
You got to go extra short, man. Do the shorts.
Yeah, do the shorts. Yeah, I hate the shorts. I don't like the shorts.
No? Why not?
No. I like to do things, quick and dirty, but that feels just way too quick and way too dirty for some shorts. And like for Star Citizen, like what can you do? Like you can do like cinematics and like 1 minute long cinematics. It works. I've had some success with that. You can do like crash course guides, and I've tried that also, and it was very hit or miss because I had some like get like 5,000 views, and then I had some completely flop. And then you can do just like random 30-second footage of whatever. And I don't play the game enough to have that kind of random footage.
Yeah, I get that. Apologies. It is iftar, and so this dude's in the back right now.
Turkish experience.
The shorts, yes, for everybody who's listening, we are back in Turkey. We just took a couple episodes over in the States, so we are back and obviously being greeted in full spirit. So you don't like the shorts doing them? Do you like watching them? Because I know a lot of people really hate just even seeing them, knowing that they exist.
I've tried it. It's not like because I don't use YouTube on my phone. Like for people who like watch YouTube on their phone, I think it's perfect.
That's
and
me.
it kind of follows the trend that you had, on TikTok, and then Instagram started doing reels and the whole feed for reels and everything. And everybody's doing that for now. I think just because they can cram a lot of content in a very short time span, which like people in their 20s or in their teens right now, their attention span is horribly short. So I think that's the perfect content for the majority.
Did you just kids these days?
Yes. I'm officially old.
Well, yeah, I think they push them a lot, so it can bring you a lot more results to do that short form stuff when they are focusing so hard on it. These platforms. But how about Star Citizen in general? The org, Imperial Geographic, video streams, photography. What are you doing in game? How is the game treating you?
Aside, like we will come back to like the whole situation over the last 3 months.
Oh yes, we will.
Oh yes, we will. But myself, I have actually been having a pretty good time in Star Citizen. I mean, 3.17 was very stable, like especially the 0.4 patch, because that was the stabilization patch, and I had a lot of time to play it actually, and got a lot of footage, got a lot of pictures, tried a lot of things, and in the meantime, obviously there's the armory. To those of you listening, if you're not using the armory, go use the armory. It's going to save you a lot of time.
Linked in the show notes.
Yeah, go to the link in the notes. Armory.thespacecoder.space. It will tell you not only where to buy stuff, but also where to loot it. And now that CIG actually fixed the loot tables, it looks a little bit better. Like that's the one thing CIG did with 3.18 that made me happy. They fixed
and this is actually we'll get to this probably just a little bit later after we start talking about the game more. But this is relating to episode 97, which if you haven't listened to it, go check it out. It's got good information, where we had Mipowski on and talked a little bit about how CIG is changing the way that items are tracked in the files and the way that that's distributed. So TheSpaceCoder, it's kind of just a coincidence that you're on, but we are having now another person who hosts another tool that does the same kind of thing that was affected by that. So we'll get some time to talk about that today too. And I guess corroborate the story. But the game overall has been running pretty well for you in 317.
317 was great. 318, like when we went into like 318 live, I actually couldn't get in game for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I was stuck out of there.
Yeah, my account was completely borked. Like my account was like could not get in. I don't think I could log into the website actually for a long time. Like it actually wouldn't load up my account at all. And then CAG kind of kicked the servers, and then I could log into the website, but that was it. I couldn't get into the game. And then they did kind of the massive series of hotfixes, and then I think like a week and a half ago, I
Yeah,
could finally get back in.
You had the short end. That sounds miserable. For me, I just couldn't play for a few days, which was annoying. But to be honest, it was a very busy time for me. Like this is the first weekend in which I would be like, okay, I'm ready to play for real. Up until now, I've been super busy, so the outages and stuff didn't bother me too much. But it's not been fun to watch.
For me, it was very much the same. I was busy with real life, and I was doing a lot of things for the armory. I just released a big feature that everybody was requesting. So now,
Nice.
now in the armory, you can save the loadout that you make, and you can share it with a link. And everybody's been asking me for this for the past 2 years that the app has been existing, and now no one's using it. I feel
nobody's
cheated.
playing.
True,
You gotta wait for people to jump back in game. Yeah.
I think it's gonna pick back. I actually, I was looking at and that's kind of the weird because everybody was crying that they can't get in game, they can't play. But the armory, like I had a huge spike after 318. We had hundreds of people every day going through the armory. So like people clearly could get in, and people were like looking for gear.
So well, let's talk about the armory and the method by which you get the information. So you basically are going through files and pulling that information out.
Yes, I think it's no secret at this point that all the apps that have information about in-game items, we use data mining. All of us do this. No matter what, some people who make apps, they will deny it. They will deny it until their deaths. But no, we do data mining. We extract the game files, and this will give us basically a couple thousand XML files that have pretty much everything that's to know about the game. And then we find the things that we need for the app that we're making. For me, that's gear information, gear stats, weapon stats, and up until now, we actually had store inventories and store prices as they would be at the start of a new server. Now, an interesting thing happened during the 318.1 PTU, not during the 318 PTU, is that this file disappeared. It wasn't there. And throughout the entire 0.1 testing, I haven't extracted all the patches, I'll be honest, and it wasn't there. So that kind of throws a hand grenade into a lot of things that a lot of us are doing. But I actually looked. I did an update this afternoon when I got off work, and in 318.1 Live, the file is there.
Huh.
Yes, it is the same. Like there's no changes between 318.1 and 318, which is to be expected. They rarely do shop inventory changes with minor patches. They usually do that with only major patches, or if it's a minor patch that kind of has. I think they did some inventory changes with 317.4 because they were adding ships into in-game stores. So that was one of the few times I've seen this done in the 3 years that I've been doing this. So, but we'll see what happens with this. For example, I checked 318.2 and 318.2 doesn't have the file either.
But that's so PTU.
But that's PTU, so maybe it's a PTU thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something they're testing on there. But if it was on the PTU for 318.1, then it would probably be merged into live as well. So maybe it's just that they're not pushing it for PTU to save space, which is reasonable. It's a fairly large file, 2 very large files, so that's reasonable. And obviously, even if this means that this file will be gone forever, it's no reason to be sad. I don't think if you got, Meep, Urkel, and whoever does the SC trade tools, if you got all of us in the room and you asked us if we were mad about this, all of us would say no, because this is progress for us. Like, yes, it will kill all our tools. Without a doubt, it will kill all the tools. And eventually this will happen with all the data, probably, where it will all be in whatever the current iteration of iCache is. I know it's not called iCache anymore, but I still call it iCache because it's still iCache. They just call it something else now. Now I think it's
the entity graph, I think.
Yeah, the entity graph and the replication layer now does it, but that's just kind of like evolution of iCache. So eventually, this would happen anyway with everything. So to me, like, yes, I am sad that it will probably destroy something that I worked on for many years. But at the same time, to me, that's like, okay, the game is moving forward, and there has been talk years ago among CIG that eventually this information will be available via an API, similar to what, and I will say the E word, Elite Dangerous does this. Like, they have an API for this, and you can pull information from the game databases into your tools. And they also have which I actually learned very recently when I was looking into how they do data mining to see if I could replicate it. They actually have journal files for your game sessions where it logs locations you visit and that kind of stuff, and you can also use that to upload data into community tools. So I think CIG will eventually make something similar for Star Citizen. I think it will be very limited in use. I don't think it will be possible to kind of gain global data from it, and that's fine. For me, all I need is to be able to read gear stats, which I think they will allow, and some limited level of sale information, even if that just gives me like the price, like the expected price of the item, and then everything else is kind of up in the air for me.
Well, we talked about this. I think it was like a few months ago. We were talking about data running and the economy and the quantum and everything like that.
I will repeat my statement. CIG, if you want to hire me to do this, because I do this in real life, like, you have my email address.
Do it. You can also just send a message on the armory.spacecoder.space. Check it out.
Find me anywhere on Discord. I have a business email on there. Just find me. I will do it for you guys. So I will do it for a reasonable amount of money too.
This idea that they are taking these items and this information out of the files, my opinion has always been like, hey, how are we going to ever have like data running in the game if people can just pull it out into their out of the files like this? Do you think that this is part of an overall push to, I mean, as you said, you're still seeing if it's in live or just in PTU, but do you think if that were the case that it goes to live, this is part of an overall push to prepare for that kind of stuff, or just regular maintenance?
I think this is separate from gameplay features.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is more of a sort of live services type thing where they're trying to, for one, if they remove all the static data from the game files, that just makes the game download that much smaller, because there is a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be there. And as you know, all the gear, all the ships, it doesn't need to be cached on the client at all, because you're not gonna, like, I have a spreadsheet somewhere, but ballpark, there is like 1,200 armors in the game, like various pieces, various colors, various variants. You will encounter maybe 1% of those. Like, there is, I think, only about 300 of those can be bought in game, and everything can be looted. But for those of you who use the armor, you know that the drop chance for a specific piece of armor is less than 1%. So that, statistically, if you do the math, you're just not going to see most of those armor. So you don't need that information on your client. Now, chances are that this is just kind of the leftover from the build process for each patch. I'm not sure. I don't know the specifics of how CIG do their builds, besides kind of what the industry standard is for this. So maybe it's just leftover and they're removing it. Could be. We don't know. So I don't think it's like a preparation for data or anything. I think it's just, regular technological progress towards... Because the important thing is, like, if you store... Like, they already store market information online. They have a service for it.
Mm-hmm.
And for them, this is way better, because what they can do is, until now, I believe, they could only change shop inventories with a patch release. Whether that was something they had to do with the entity graph, who knows? But if they put that all away into a service, they can just live edit this at any point in time. And I think that's an ability that they would like to have, because it allows you to directly intervene in the economy, and maybe something's not working out. There's one piece of something missing somewhere. You can just go in, edit it. Like, say they do a lot of their categories on things. They use a system of tags, basically, where one tag is like all the armors and so forth and so forth. So sometimes it happens that they miss an item in this. Like, it will be something missing, like, say, every store now has weapon magazines, and say you will have like one magazine missing from a store because of this. Before, they would need a full game release to fix this. Now, or if they had a live service, they could just go in, edit this, release that to the live service, and it would propagate along all the shards as they spin back up, which I think is way more effective.
As a filthy casual, I didn't even think about the idea that stuff being stored on the game files meant that they couldn't do that stuff, because you just think of a price as being dynamic. So does that mean that the prices do change to some extent, right?
Yes, that is actually defined in the file. Like, it tells you what's the percentage it can change up and down.
Huh.
It's all in there.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you can actually, for commodities, you can actually reconstruct the curve, because they are not linear, not all of them. So you could actually change that. So I think it might
this is
also
a
be
very important change.
Yes, it is very important. Though I believe that commodity pricing, specifically for commodities for trading, has been fully dynamic and fully service-based for almost a year now, I think. Because at some point, to facilitate quantum and the global economy, they, if, maybe you remember this, like 2-3 years ago, every outpost on every server had its own inventory. So if you came somewhere and they were out of something, you could just log into a different server and maybe it wouldn't be out.
Yeah, it was a while back.
Yeah, that was like 2-3 years back. At some point, they changed this because it was a prerequisite for server meshing, that one outpost across many servers shares inventory. So the Lorville trade department that you're selling to, it's same across all servers.
Yeah, and that killed cargo.
Because they just, I'm not sure how that happened, because it's a very easily adjustable thing for them to just increase supply and increase the refresh rate, because the files actually have the refresh rate for things, and they actually have even which commodities can affect the refresh rate. It hasn't been used in a long time. I think the last time I saw it used was maybe 3.16, 3.15. They don't use it anymore, so maybe that's not something they're doing. But yeah, they severely miscalculated the volume of trade happening in Star Citizen when they made that change, and they killed trading for the past 3 years. Only now I see people coming back to it, and they still say like, it sucks pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But you said that would be an easy change. Why do you say that?
I would just increase the volume of everything.
So, obviously, but what would be? I mean, if it's an easy change, why haven't they done it for over 3 years?
It's an easy change to do it. It's difficult to figure out how much to change it. That's one problem. The second problem is that I think it's so low on the list of priorities. It's just not worth it.
Tell that to all these danged cargo haulers leaving these danged comments about cargo not paying. No, I sympathize with them. It's not even the comments. Like, I want to do cargo hauling, and on top of that, like, if cargo hauling works, everything else works, right? You attract pirates. Pirates attract fights. Fights attract salvage. Salvage attracts more pirates. Like, it starts at cargo.
Cargo hauling, it works. You can do it. It's just you can't do it the way they have been doing it up until now, or up until cargo was broken. It's not going to work that you come into an outpost and buy a Hercules full of medical supplies. It's just not going to work. But if you take like a MSR or a Cutlass and you buy up, like, I actually like to do this when I want to.
But the margins aren't there.
The margins aren't there. But do you want to grind money, or do you want to do hauling, or like for fun? Like, do you want to play, or do you want to grind? Like, if you want to grind and do the spreadsheet game, go play Eve, go play Elite. Star Citizen is not the game.
I'm not trying to do that, but like, I want to be able to say, hey, I'm a small package delivery person. I do take the MSR out to haul stuff, and because of that, I target a specific type of cargo that's valuable in that amount, but too volatile to go in larger amounts or something like that. But I can't do that. I'm like, oh yeah, I just haul half the amount of laranite that you do. Yay.
You can actually do. I'm not sure if it was 317 that did this. They or maybe it was 318. They have like very good prices for commodities that are in demand. So what you can do, I think it especially works with like a freelancer or a cuddless, is you go in and you grab like some food, some distilled spirits, some stems, that kind of stuff, and you just fly around outposts on planets. And they will like it will take you a long time. You will not make as much money, but they will give you a very good rate for like 5 SCU or whatever. And it's for me that's fun. For me that's trading. For me that feels like a useful part of the economy
Mhm.
because someone has to do that. If you think of it as a economy simulation, someone has to fly to all these places and deliver them food every once in a while, and they will pay you for it a good amount of money. Now there is, I think, one of the reasons CIG are not fixing this is that they're hoping to eventually bring back a more comprehensive economy system. I think we might see some of it in, I think, 319. They promised the mining refactor.
Yeah.
I
New
think we might see
material.
some of that. Yeah. The new, well, the mining refactor, I think the way they proposed it doesn't make much sense, but they proposed it in that way to facilitate trade, which is important. Now, and especially now that we have physicalized cargo and we can share cargo, I think that will also promote trade. I wish there was a more organized, controlled way to sell someone your cargo.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because like because to me, like I have a cargo ship and I have a prospector, so it doesn't matter to me that much. I will just do my own sales. But say someone who is renting a prospector and they want to refine their material, uh, I think it's more beneficial for them to just sell that refined cargo to someone rather than to do rent the cuttles and do the hauling themselves.
Yeah, man. I
Uh,
mean, that's
and
huge.
you can do it. Like you can just spawn like your Avenger or something, load in 8 SC of cargo and go like this. Except the refinery won't let you do that. The refinery won't let you take less cargo than the full batch, so you're screwed. So I think eventually this will come. I think it will be part of the player hangars. But
The
it remains
ability
to be
to sell
yeah,
more easily.
something like that.
Well, I mean, you make a really good point because this, as of 318, that's going to become way more obvious with salvage and, like you said, with the cargo refactor, with the next version of the cargo refactor, with freight elevators, with the mining stuff, with starfarers being able to remove their fuel thing. It's like they really
Yeah,
need to get a better ownership system into the game, like
yeah.
with 319.
And like persistent entity streaming, it was the first step for this. Now, if you look at the monthly reports, they have teams working on physicalized cargo and kind of the ownership tracking that comes with it. So I think this will eventually make it in. It is, I can confirm somewhat from professional experience that it is difficult to do this kind of thing, especially with the type of persistent database CIG has, because they use a graph database. They are good for what CIG is doing. Like it's a very good structure to logically maintain the state of the universe, because when you think about it, universe is a graph in a way. And I think a lot of mathematicians in the comments will argue with me on that one. But you know what, guys? I almost fluked out of math, so I don't care.
No argument needed.
Yeah, says the computer engineer with a master's degree. Yeah,
Hey
but
man, I never liked math as an engineer, so I get that.
no, like I get why we need it, but no, it makes my brain hurt, and I don't like that. But so it makes sense as a structure for storage. But these databases, they're incredibly difficult to do something with because graphs have their own rules to them, and you kind of have to work around those and work around in a way that's effective and has good performance, which is difficult sometimes. And I think
Well,
CAG will be fighting with this quite a lot.
what I have to say to that is, I want to transfer my salvage and not have it be stolen. So please, uh, graph it up. I mean, it
Yeah, I
makes
think,
sense though,
yeah,
because you gotta even asking the question like, when does ownership change in this game? Is it when you put it on their ship? Is it when it touches their hands? When you have to go into the mobiGlas to change it?
yeah,
How does that work for ships? How about cargo, fuel? Like there are a lot of parameters to figure out.
yeah. And I think sort of the stopgap solution. And CIG doesn't like stopgap solutions, and I understand why. They have a lot of things to do, and it's not exactly beneficial to do workarounds and hacky solutions. But what you could do is just have like a cargo area in a hangar that you could offload. And they're actually working on cargo elevators, so they might be like making their way towards it, where you offload your cargo and it goes somewhere. Like it goes away into the station. It's now stored at the station or the landing zone.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to give this cargo to someone else, you could potentially like do it through a Mobiglass. They could do like a Mobiglass app where you like transfer cargo ownership kind of thing. You could do that, and I think that would be very elegant. And then that person can call up the cargo into their hangar and load it on their ship.
Yeah.
And this would actually work more or less with the current systems that we have, because we already have physicalized cargo. We can load our cargo, it snaps to the grid. Or if they wanted to do like a more hacky way to do this, like through the Mobiglass app, just be in the same party, have cargo stored, go to the hangar where your friend is, call up your cargo to that hangar, and load it. That's it. Ownership transferred. Have a nice day.
Either way, I see the potential for a new money sink there with like cargo storage fees, especially if you're using the shared space.
CIG love money sinks.
They haven't done enough of them, to be honest. There's like not enough reason to want to spend money.
Yeah. And I think CIG, they understand this. I would very much love to have an opportunity to browse through their like internal Confluence with their design documents, because I imagine most of the stuff that we're talking about is already in there, and they are aware of it, and they're trying to get there. But there's blockers that we're not aware of. I know that physicalized cargo is a big blocker right now with getting anything done, really, with cargo and trading. Quantum and economy, big blockers also. Can we skip a thing? Because you have a question of like what I want to see on ISC. I want them to bring back Tony Z. Like I want to know. Like it's been almost 2 years since that long video about how economy is going to work. I want to see the guy. I want proof of life. I want to know what's happening with that.
They mention him occasionally. I guess they mention his team occasionally in the monthly reports. But yeah, they're very, very quiet about what he's doing, and I'm guessing it's nothing that flashy or fancy. But
I think it's not flashy or fancy to be shown on ISC, but it's definitely fancy and flashy for me, because it's
Star
kind of
Citizen
a personal
Live
thing. Yeah, I see. That would be actually a good show, I think, because Tony Z, he can put on a show very well, and he can talk.
He talks.
So the problem is like when he talks, I think they have someone with a gun behind the camera and like stopping him when he's about to say
I mean,
too much.
Tony and Chris are definitely cut from the same cloth when it comes to explaining ideas. We'll put it that way.
It's kind of also a personal thing, because I know that the quantum team is where I would go if I were to be accepted by CIG, because they use the technologies that I use, and they kind of work with the same skill set that I work with. So that's where I would go if CIG were to hire me, most likely. I know that their tools team also works with similar stuff, so that's also a possibility. But if I could get into quantum, that would be very nice. I'm pretty sure they would make me sign an NDA, several NDAs, so that I wouldn't use any of this for anything. But I'm willing to take that risk.
Let's stick to 319 actually then, and let's talk about not necessarily quantum but economy. They are bringing in the ability to remove, repair, exchange, steal components from ships, which is like, if they had put this into the game in 2020, I feel like people would have lost their minds because of how far away it felt like physical components were. And now they're coming into the game, and they're not making as much buzz as I expected. I am so freaking excited about it. But my main question today for you is, do you think there are going to be any economy changes surrounding that? Because components are expensive. So if you can steal them, you can make a lot of good money.
Well, so there's going to be economy changes around mining. We know this. We don't know the extent. They just did like that ISC where they talked about it. That's why I actually didn't do a video on it, because they said a lot, but they didn't say much about what's going to happen. And that's what I'm kind of waiting for more information, possibly 319 PTU, to see. Like, I'm waiting to see what happens in the files, basically, because I have a side script that pulls all the mining information for the lols, and so I'm waiting to see what happens there. and I know how their loot and mineable generation system works because I needed to figure it. By the way, for those of you who don't know, it's the same system that generates loot that generates minables. That's why loot sucks. By the way, in case you didn't know, so there's going to be those changes. That's already going to create, I think, a bit of a flux in the economy. There's also going to be salvage contracts, which are also going to screw with the economy, I think. And they actually did some salvage adjustment with 3.319.1, also 318.1. So there's that also. And the component, well, it's difficult to say. I know that they make them detachable. I know they would like to make them sellable. They specifically, I believe, said weapons. I don't know if they said it would work on all components, because when you think about it, not every ship has the component slots in it.
Yeah.
I think the Avenger doesn't have them. The Freelancer doesn't have them, but they are. I believe they have it on
They're updating the Freelancer.
Yeah, they're updating the Freelancer to have it. But all the new ships have it. So technically, you could be able to strip ships of components and sell those components. I think it will have. I think it will be sort of an extension of salvage, but I think it will come with several caveats. Number one, the components will be in a horrible state because the ship has been damaged and has been exploded. Half of those components will be at 0 health and will be worth nothing if you're going to be able to sell them at all. And those who are not going to be completely destroyed will be severely damaged. And if you try and sell a item like a piece of armor that has very high wear and tear, it's practically worthless. So I don't think it will create that much of a dent.
Is that hold on? Is that a thing? If an item, like I know the visual wear and tear on weapons and stuff. I don't actually know if they showed that in ISC. I don't know if it's actually updating that much in game. But do you know if wear and tear changes the cost of items in game?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It never really comes into play.
Yeah.
When you find an item, I don't think they can do it with the loot system. So when you find an item, it's usually at 100% condition. But if you wear an armor for a long time, it will very slowly deteriorate.
Yeah, we just need more persistence and less dying.
Yeah. So yes, it happens. I think it will be more prevalent for components. I think they will sort of have the ability to plug that into the system that generates it. We will see. I'm very excited to see this because I don't have a voucher, but this would be a very attractive type of salvage for me. Because that's how I imagine salvage actually. Like the health scraping, that's just the sideshow for me. For me, salvage is like I go into a crashed ship, I pull out the components, then if I have a reclaimer on hand, I will chew it up, get the valuables out of there, and that's it. Leave nothing behind. So that's just I actually had the video on this, the future of salvage, where I went through the expected evolutions of salvage. So go watch that, guys. It's pretty good. I think
it is very exciting considering all the different parts of salvage. I'm interested in seeing what they end up doing for fuel siphoning. I know it could just be the reverse of refueling, but the idea of oxygen, water, and fuel being valuable in space is a new layer to Star Citizen.
It will just be a beam. It will just be a multi-tool attachment.
Hey, they didn't do beam for fueling yet, so you're in hope.
Yeah, they will have drones eventually. That would be beams plus.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of people complain about Beam Citizen, but I get it. If I was the developer, I would do it the same way, because it's a very easy way to get around a lot of the issues, all the desync. You just solved it. You went all around it. You now don't have to do animations. You now don't have to do interactions between items of connecting things. Do you remember the mess they had when they had the refueling arm on the Starfarer? When that didn't work for months, it would just make things spin for no reason. So you would avoid all of that if it was just the beam. It would be great.
Yeah, I had a good talk with this with Astropub back in episode 96. We talked about the fact that the beams also just make it easy to get involved. You don't want your first version of mining to be digging a hole into an asteroid, planting a charge, and getting a minimum distance. You want it to be something a beginner can just pick up and do in an hour.
Yeah. So it makes perfect sense to me. Obviously, if they want to do something you find a ship, it has some fuel in it, so you have to go in and like pull the fuel tanks. If they want to do that in the future, that's fine. I think they need to right now they need to very much keep it to broad strokes, kind of do the lowest barrier of entry into a gameplay loop and leave it there, and then come back to it in the next pass. And
sorry, go ahead.
And they kind of did that with mining initially. They just were like, okay, here's ship mining, do whatever you want with it. And it was quiet for I think almost a year, and they were like, oh, we're gonna do hand mining, and they were like, oh, we're gonna do the rock, and then they just started ramping up mining because I think they realized that they need to like build out a full industrial gameplay loop to figure out what they actually should do with industrial gameplay loops.
Yeah.
But now that they have that experience, they can just start adding these very slowly, and it will work.
It's also something they're very obviously doing with bounty hunting. The first version being you just go there, shoot someone, and kill them. Obviously equivalent, I think, to something like a beam in terms of gameplay. It's a click a button, get the job done. Yeah. To now, we're obviously seeing that you are going to have to incapacitate them, get them on a rope, take them and hide and immobilize them with the tractor beam, take them to a city, put them into a jail cell, and then get paid. And it's like clearly there's a way, a process of making this gameplay and building the deeper stuff later. So I think people should probably just look at the old design documents whenever they're worried about Beam Citizen.
Yeah. And I think it kind of applies to all of software development, really. Like, you want to start with a simple thing, especially when you have a live service. You want to start very simple. It doesn't apply as much when you have a client dictating requirements, but when you have something like Star Citizen or like whatever that provides a service, you want to start with something very simple, like very broad strokes, very easy to implement, very easy to get into for the users, and then you kind of refine on it. And that's what CH are doing with, they did it with mining. I think they will do it with salvage. They are doing it with bounty hunting right now, and that's a good approach in my mind. It is slower. Granted, it is slower because you kind of have that. I think it's called a PDCA cycle: plan, do, check, act, kind of a thing, where you go around and you do thing, then you look at how it's reacting, how it's working, then you figure out the next step, and then you do the next step, and you go around like this, and eventually we'll end up with something that works. It is slow, granted, it is slow, but I think it yields a much better quality. And when you think about it, mining has been in a very, very good state for years now. Like, mining has been consistently a good gameplay loop. Besides,
I could put you in a room with some people who'd beat you up for saying that.
Oh, well, they can try.
I think there's a lot of perspectives on what is considered good or not, and you're definitely speaking towards the base gameplay of, like, obviously not looking at what the Orion might offer or things like that, but you mean the actual mechanics that we use, the laser, the gadgets, the stuff like that is solid.
Yeah. Yes, the economy of mining doesn't work because the economy doesn't work. The random generation of mineable rocks doesn't work because it never worked. But the mechanics of it, like, you go somewhere, you point a beam at the rock breaks apart, you pick it up, you go into a refinery, you refine it. Like, this basic industrial chain, it works.
It does.
And they've set it up in a way where they can tweak it very easily, like the base values of it, and create a slightly different balance, which is good. Now they kind of have to bring that back in, and they are going to be doing that with 3.19 with the mining refactor mining rebalance, where they, realize that, we're missing some elements, and the economy is not perfect, so we're going to add some of the missing elements, and then it doesn't make sense realistically that some stuff will not be available in some places. That's not how space works. That's just not how it works. But that's fine. They needed to stimulate the economy, and I am willing to accept that. The fact that their solution to people not doing FPS cave mining is to add an extremely valuable mineral to caves is horrible. That makes no sense as a design decision. That, like, when they said that to me, immediately the first thing in my mind was like, these people have never mined in a cave, because the solution they're proposing is completely backwards. And I did a video on this, on why cave mining sucks. Go watch it. It's pretty good.
Give me a quick rundown. Why is that not a good way to do it, in your opinion?
What's the first thing that happens when you get into a cave? You die.
I
Like
was gonna
immediately.
say I have that visual glitch that makes it look like
Yeah.
there's a bunch of ribs across the cave.
Yeah, so there's visual issues, there's clipping issues. Didn't you say sand caves are actually very good? I tested those extensively, and they were very good, but I still managed to randomly die on clipping issues. Uh, FPS mining is completely uncompetitive compared to anything. You will make less money than if you were running deliveries sometimes, which is stupid. Also, just general traversal in caves, I hate it. But on the other hand, it is, and I think that's the missed opportunity. What is it? It's a very low barrier of entry for doing it. Like, if you want to get started on mining, literally buy a backpack, buy a multi-tool, go into a cave. Assuming caves work, which they mostly don't. Also, then there's the thing where if you survive the whole experience, you manage to mine everything and you actually manage to make it out, because usually it's the way out of the cave that kills you, not the way down. You come out of the cave and you find that your ship is gone. This can happen for two reasons. Number one, because you left the object container above the cave and your ship despawned, which is a new thing with the current persistence.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I think they will probably fix it in point two though.
Wait, ships despawn?
Oh yeah, they despawn big time, especially when you get too far away. But like I said, I think they will fix it in point two, because I think it's a persistent streaming problem, not a, because it didn't happen until now. Now it happens occasionally,
You mean
and I
now
think
as in
yeah,
318.1 or
yeah, it's
318 branch?
a 318 branch. It was in live. I haven't tried it in point one yet,
Hmm.
so maybe they fixed it already. But I think they would fix it in point two. Or number two, because now you have bounties and enemies spawning above caves, it's more likely that your ship got blown up and you're screwed. So that's the problem with cave mining. Generally, I don't think they're going to fix caves, because that's a very big ask to fix.
Well,
Like,
they are fixing the rocky caves.
yes,
Like they're
I
redoing them.
think. See, they're redoing them. That's the thing, because they
But
realize
but
it's not gonna work.
but you
But yes,
said yourself that the sandy caves work a
yeah,
lot better. So
the
they're
sand caves
redoing.
are a lot better, because they kind of abandoned that complex floor geometry there, as mostly flat, clearly defined pathways. And I think that helps with a lot of clipping issues. I think they also refined how they do the wall meshes and that kind of stuff. But I don't think you need to go into a cave to do FPS mining. I think it's entirely unnecessary. I think it's very good, and I will, like, if you want to put like the super valuable element in there, it's fine by me. But I think FPS minables should just spawn around rivers.
I agree. I do agree with that.
Because I mean, what is the earliest form of gold mining? Just a guy with a little pan by the side of a river.
Honestly, for me, the idea of minables and the way that they're actively different materials whenever they spawn kind of annoys me. I wish that they were all the same material, just spawned in sizes that could be broken based on the power that goes into them. So like
Yeah.
if you have 20 multi-tool tractor beam or multi-tool mining tools, you can mine something that is normally a rock mineable, right? Or if you have a prospector, you can blow the crap up out of a hand mineable. But I don't like that they're separate materials or that they spawn in separate places
Yeah.
based on what they're meant to be done. It doesn't feel very immersive, you know?
Yeah, I also think I generally don't enjoy the whole physicalized crystal thing they do for the rock and for FPS minables. It, for one, it just adds another system to everything, which is completely different from all of mining. So now you kind of have to maintain two things, which I think it's not great. They should have just make it possible. Like, yes, they did it for like economy reasons, but I would hope they would do something less different. But maybe it will make sense in the future. Like, we don't know what they're trying to do with it. I think it will make sense maybe once crafting is in and once more hand mineable resources are in and you can actually do something with them. It might make sense. Uh, but who knows?
Yeah.
That's why I kind of feel like rock mining and FPS mining, it's kind of dead in the water right now because I don't think even CIG know what to do with it because they kind of played themselves into that place where they have it. They just don't know what to do with it.
Hmm.
Because I don't know if you remember, but before the rock was introduced, there was actually, I think, like 1 or 2 patches between hand mining and the rock. You would have hand minables on the surface or on the surface, just really hanging out. Now they're replaced with rock minables. So
Hmm.
clearly it was possible. Clearly they kind of had it in the initial design that it would
Yeah.
happen. So
They
why not just
segmented it out.
yeah? So why not just put them around lakes and rivers? Number one, you bring people to lakes and rivers. Number two, they already have a preset for loot spawning there because you have harvestables, you have fruits and stuff spawning
Yeah.
around lakes. So they already have it. So they do it in Data Forge. So for them, it's literally checking a checkbox to
Yeah.
add it. So it takes someone 10 minutes, including the merge request. So
I had hoped that they would do something a little bit with minables or even more harvestables around the rivers, but we've yet to see that.
yeah,
Hopefully sometime.
with the initial release of Rivers, I didn't think it would happen, but I think they would see the opportunity with the second release, where they now have like 40 or something rivers all over the place. So I think they would have seen it, and they didn't. And I'm not sure if that's intentional or maybe just an oversight, and they will fix it eventually. Uh, but generally, a strange decision
Yeah,
on that.
that's the problem with exploration. Is like those rivers, people can't find them. Actual explorers could be out there discovering these rivers and selling the location because people would want to go mining there, but there's no way to detect a river when you
No.
scan, and there's no way to sell people that
Yeah,
location. It's like
generally, the
these
scanning
tiny
system is
things.
horrible.
Yeah.
Like it worked. It worked while only minables existed. Now that there is mining, surface mining, rock minables, now there's salvage. It doesn't really work that well anymore. And this is the thing that I actually like struggle with, sort of externally, where I'm trying to, because for those of you who watch my videos for a longer period, you know that I complain about a thing and I say something is wrong, but I usually come back with a possible solution. And scanning is something where I struggle to come up with a comprehensive way to do it that makes sense and is future proof. And right now, my current idea is like, yes, we have scanner pings. They tell you what's around you, and you can refine that with the proper scanner. But right now, the scanner pings, they feel very crowded. Like when you're in an asteroid field and there's like ships around you, there's salvage, there's minables. You will have all these returns and very little information beyond that. So the CAG needs to come up with a way to give you the power, to give you the information to decide what to do next. And I
Yeah.
think they will do that with I think they showed it on CitizenCon with master modes and quantum boosting.
Yeah,
That
that's
they
what I
are,
think the answer is.
yeah. So I think that's where the answers are going to be. I think that's where a lot of especially now that persistence is a thing, you could have it with a scanning ship like MSR, Terrapin that have a scanning station where you could save that location and sell it. I I think that would be doable, especially since they're introducing the salvage contracts and mining contracts, which I know that they're saying salvage contracts will be in 319, but I'm still hoping mining contracts will make it too,
Yeah,
because that would greatly help mining.
it would.
And
It'd be huge.
yeah,
And honestly, those were two things I wasn't really expecting in 319.
yeah.
Besides the let's see, the physical components with the tractor beam stuff, these contracts with mining and salvage that we've talked about, and what was it? What we had talked about something else before. We've gone through some of 319. Are there any other big things either that you see coming in 319 or that you hope come in 319?
So the mining contracts are very big for me. I know that they're trying to it's going to be salvage only, but I'm hoping they will make it with mining as well. I am very excited for the refactor or like rebalance of mining. We will see what that does. And I'm hoping some of the back-end cargo refactor stuff makes it in because it's going to fix a lot of issues. Like for me, a lot of the things that I want to make it in are technical because I know that that's going to I know we said this last year that 2022, 2023 will be the technical years. It will be very bleak on content, which is so far proving true. Like content is very bleak, like over the last 6-8 months. But it will be a lot of tech coming in. We had persistent streaming. We're gonna have physicalized cargo refactor. We're getting close on server meshing. I'm willing to say that we're getting close, even though they are hitting major issues. But I think now that they actually managed to sit down in one room and actually talk about it, they might have figured something out. And what else we got in 3.19? I'm just gonna quickly open the progress tracker because I just need to check what they committed. Because I think they only have like the tractor beam.
links. Tractor beam.
Salvage
that's not even
contract.
on the release view, actually. Yeah, salvage contracts, Loreville City, and new player
Ghost
experience.
Hollow, PvP mission, new player experience. They have links on the release view as tentative. I think they will make it because at some point they said that it passed final art, so I think it will make it.
I think it just got out of gray box.
Yeah, I think they had it like. I think gray
yeah,
box
it was. Last checkup was ISC gray box, and then the monthly report that came out last week said it just finished gray box.
Oh, well,
I think it's possible then.
It's small,
for a ground vehicle. Yeah, I think that's possible.
Plus, it's an Ursa with origin seats. Come on.
So, what do you think of 3.19 then? With the selection that we have right now.
So 3.18 was the patch that broke it all. Like I will use a ship analogy on this. You have Star Citizen is a ship. 3.18 was the torpedo that hit the ship just now. The ship is sinking. 3.18.1 was the quick damage control solution to keep the ship afloat. Stop the flooding, button down the hatches, put out the fires. That's 3.18.1. So now we are limping back to port. 3.18.2 will be kind of the dry dock for this to repair the worst of the damage and get us ready. And 3.19 will be a fresh coat of paint. Nothing more. Because there is nothing in there right now that's too relevant. There's the tractor beams.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And that's like, yeah, sure, great. We'll see how it works. Like I guarantee you that it will break everything again.
We're also getting the first industrial missions ever.
True. And that's still, when you compare it to like releases maybe 2 years ago, it's not great.
I think it's great. I think if we got an update like 3.19 2 years ago with a remade city, a new player experience, physicalized components, and missions for mining and salvage. I mean, we've been asking for mining missions forever. I think people would be absolutely astounded with the 3.19 patch.
I don't think.
Yeah, we might not. But if those did make it in, along with the new material, the all of this other stuff, I think personally that it would be considered a very, very good patch 2 years ago. Yeah. Now, maybe not as much.
Maybe not as much.
That's different.
But yeah, like I'm not holding my breath for mining contracts, but my fingers are crossed. Like I'm hoping, but I'm not gonna hold my breath for it. But what I'm more looking forward to is I think there's gonna be again a lot of tech going into it. Like the physicalized components. I think that's gonna be very important because that's also like a prerequisite for a lot of other things down the line. I think they will also do some work related to server meshing and optimizing persistent entity streaming, which is also important. So that's kind of the problem with the release view, that you don't see. They don't put this technology stuff on there anymore. They just put kind of the features.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that you're going to physically see in the verse. I wish they would put the technology stuff on there as well, because I think that would, because they used to do that, like up until, what was it, when they changed the roadmap.
They still kind of put that stuff, like the persistent entity streaming and Gen 2, to the big things they put on there, but not like the client actor rework kind of stuff that they used to.
I wish they would be a little more detailed, but obviously the release view is discontinued now. They use primarily progress tracker, which is very good. It's very good when it's up to date, which it is most of the time. Somewhat. I think it has like the things that are actively being worked on.
There are like a lot of things on there that are like last updated April 2021.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But we're actively seeing the progress on it being done right now. So it's like, what's actually going on?
Yeah. So you kind of, to have a mental image of what's going on, you have to like look at the release view, look at the progress tracker, read the roadmap, read the monthly report for Persistent Universe and Squadron 42, because you will see overlaps and that kind of stuff. So I'm hopeful for 3.19. I think it's going to be much softer launch than 3.18 because 3.18 was a garbage fire. And that's fine. I know it sounds like I'm giving CIG shit, but I'm not. they managed expectations very well with 318. They said that it's going to suck, and it did. And they very, very, very quickly brought it back to an operational state for a big chunk of backers, which I think is the critical part. And then 318.1 rolled out very quickly, and that brought pretty much everybody back online. I don't think I know anyone who still can't log in, and I don't think I know anybody. And then 318.2 will be the sort of final pass on 318, and then we'll have 319. Now,
but 319 will also be 318 technically, yeah? Because they're doing the same code base, 315, 316 kind of thing they did.
Yes. So that's the thing. Like under the hood, it will still be 318 technically. We will see how that goes. I think if they are doing the thing that most companies would do at this point, where they're merging back the fixes into the development branch, it will be okay. Maybe we will see some bugs come back, maybe not. Hard to say right now. We will see when the first 319 PTU comes out. I don't think we're going to see it for another month or two at least, because I think 318.2 will be in PTU for at least 2 weeks right now.
So you think 319 is going to see a delay?
Oh, it already is delayed. Like 318 was the Q4 patch. It's Q2.
But I mean, they pushed 319 back with the expectation that it would be March, right? A March release.
I think it will. So now that makes 319 the Q3 release, if my math is correct. So I think it will see a delay. Probably not significant. I think it will be like the usual delay of 2 to 4 weeks. Nothing too critical. But if I may add, there's only one thing CIG did wrong with 318. And everybody will say this to you. Why the CIG? CIG, if you're listening, please send me an email explaining something to me. Why are you releasing Friday evening? Why?
Yeah, it was not a great
why
move.
It's not the look. Here's the thing. You know what happens when you release on a Friday evening? You now have to have the team of people. So there's going to be your gameplay features, US and EU persistent experience and live services teams. These guys are going to have to stay the weekend, and you're going to have to pay them for it. And I don't know what CIG's weekend overtime rates are. I know what mine are, and it's expensive. Like, I make a lot of money if I work a weekend, and it's very expensive to my employer. So don't do that, CIG. One, it's wasting money. Two, it's not getting you anywhere. Like, if you look at the case of 318, right? If they released the next Monday, the outcome would be the same. Like, it would still break everything. People wouldn't be able to log in. But
yeah, but didn't they have a sale?
Classic CIG.
That's also, I'm sorry, I have to jump in here because you did say if they delayed 319 a couple of weeks, nothing big would be missed, but it would be a sale. And that's why I don't think they will delay it.
Yeah, that's, CIG, stop letting the marketing team decide, make DevOps decisions for you. Stop. Like, when you make DevOps decisions, kick them out of the room, please. Like,
they own the room.
Yeah,
they invite them over to the marketing cafeteria.
Yeah, because when we release in the real world, if on Tuesday afternoon we're not sure, we're pushing it a week. Like, there's not going to be a Wednesday morning release. Like, no, especially if you're running a live service. It's just nope. We're going to do it next week. Too bad. And I know CIG can't do this because of marketing reasons. I understand that. I don't think it would be that big of a deal to push something. 3 days. It's like, I know the frustrations with 318 were high at that point because it's been months in the PTU and waiting for a release. So I understand the urgency and to rip off the Band-Aid. But on the other hand, it's not as much, I guess, a technical thing as much as I feel with the developers, being developer myself, who sometimes has to work weekends, sometimes has to work very long hours. Like right now, I'm working very long hours, and sometimes we work weekends, and I hate it. I don't like doing this just because the management promised something. I don't like doing this, and it costs the company a lot of money. It leads to burnout on the developers, and you don't want that, especially with the creative thing like a video game. And I think CIG needs to sort of come around to that conclusion because they this shows a very startup mentality within CIG, and that's dangerous in a corporation of that size.
Well,
If that makes sense.
no, I mean they've definitely grown to a point where I think they're showing signs of both a large company and still a small company, and it's not a good mix. And
Now,
there are things
they're doing the
we
worst of both.
we hear this when it comes to communication. We hear this when it comes to marketing. When it comes to the website or moderation or infrastructure, I think there are some things that they really need to kind of, for lack of a better term, grow up on. And this last year has been a big proving time for that, I think. And this lead up to server meshing and what happens after 4.0 specifically, I think will be the biggest test for them, because after 4.0, people are going to view this as a normal game for sure. I mean, people already do, but once they have multiple servers and they're going to do a huge marketing push after 4.0, it's going to be different expectations.
You know, I actually saw an ad for Star Citizen the other
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, I've seen a few.
I actually saw an ad and I'm like, I haven't seen this in like 2 years.
Yeah, they're not,
Very
and they're
cheap.
not those ones that people buy for referral codes. They're like actual ads
They're
bought by the
actual
company.
legit.
Yeah.
That's what I like checked. Like, oh, is this like someone doing referrals? No, it's CIG. Wow.
Yeah.
So they like, I think they're kind of coming around to it, and they're sort of figuring out because I understand this because CIG grew very quickly over the last 3 years. So I get it that they might not be sort of up to standard on a lot of things, similar to companies of a similar size. But it's like, how many employees does CIG have right now? It's like, what, 800 people?
Yeah, it's
Across all offices?
well over 800 at this point. Yeah.
Because they did a lot of hiring during the pandemic. So they probably have way over 800 right now. And I mean, they are doing new offices in Manchester. So probably there's a reason for that. And
They've definitely grown, not only in employees but in user base. I was looking at some calculations. In fact, maybe I'll put this on the screen if I remember while I'm editing this, but I'm looking at it right now. I posted this on Twitter for anybody who's wondering. Just showing the accounts versus the date and when they were joined, and like the amount of people who have joined this game since 2020 by the end of this year will be higher than before.
Yeah.
In the last 3 years, there will be more people who have joined Star Citizen, at least more accounts made than before. And that's like, there's some ramifications of that. That's huge.
I think, 318 was in a sense a wake-up call for CAG on this, where they are like, obviously, everyone in the comments is gonna be like, oh, it's an alpha. What the are you about? Like, yes, it is an alpha. But if CIG want to present it as a playable live service, then that comes with a certain standard, regardless of whether it's an alpha or not. If you come into the room and be like, oh, it's playable right now, live service, persistent universe, and then you kind of have the 318 debacle, then that kind of shows two very different things.
It's a tough position to be in.
It's a tough position to be in, and I'm not saying CIG handled it wrong. CIG handled it very well. Maybe besides some communication stuff, but and planning, like,
it was rough, but yeah.
But okay, like given CIG's track record, they did great.
They definitely could have avoided some very easy losses, like maybe not releasing all the trailers on the day that everything went to crap.
Yeah.
That
also maybe don't immediately push out a new ship variant that's completely useless and not working in the release.
That too. Oy.
Yeah, it's every time like they do this, like, oh, we're doing a new variant. It's straight to flyable. The Evocati have not touched this. Nobody has seen this.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Just like give Evocati or like anybody, like just give everyone in the PTU the new variant for a day. It will be fine. Like just so you find the basic issues of like, oh, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or maybe don't release new variants of very expensive ships.
Yes.
When the game when like 75% of the players can't log into the game.
Possibly. Yeah. Well, I personally, I don't think 319 is going to be delayed. I think if anything, they'll push features out of it, but they will push to get 319 in May, because Invictus Week, oh baby, that is a big funding push for them.
Oh, that's true. We have Invictus in like what, end of May?
Yeah, it's like a month and a half away at most.
So
like they're gonna want to get that in, because then they'll have 319 up. It'll be super clean and beautiful. It'll probably be a little bit more stable, so they can say it's a stable patch, and then they'll get the Santok Yai in for Alien Week a week later. So I think,
you know what they could do? 3.18.3.
That is 319. That's why it's so simple. It's literally 318.3 with some
That's the thing.
features in
Like
it.
you say they could remove features, but there's like nothing else they could
Bro,
remove.
I don't know if I maybe like I am living in the past possibly, but I was already hyped for 319 before they even talked about the tractor beam stuff.
Oh, I
And
was
then
too.
they introduced that, and I'm like, yo, this is like, if this patch had come last year, I would have been freaking jazzed.
When they said
I
like
like it.
Lorville Cityscape, and when they said salvage contracts, I was like, yes, because Lorville, like I like Lorville. It's great. It's the first landing zone we had. Like all of us had a lot of fun. And like everybody who was a citizen back then, like when they did the demo at CitizenCon with Lorville and the bunkers in Hurston, that was great. Like I
Yeah.
love Lorville. It's amazing. It's a very simple landing zone. I can't wait for the new skyline. It will be great. Pictures galore all over the place, especially when it's going to be traversable and flyable.
Yeah, it is
Good times.
beautiful. Oh my gosh, I think that might be my first cinematic in a while once
Yeah.
that comes out. But I will say I was it was like a slow ascension of disappointment as I started to realize they're not talking at all about the actual city. They're just talking about the skyline. And slowly
Yeah.
started to come to the realization that they're not actually going to get the interior of the city reworked for this, which I think they need to continue to make very clear because I'm sure people are going to think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's like when I saw it, I think it was on ISC where they talking about. I'm like, oh, so they're gonna change like the residences and stuff. And like, yeah, they could use a pass. Like it's very old tech, so maybe they could refresh it a little bit. And they were like, no, it's just gonna be the skyline. I'm like, okay. Like I guess that reworking the entire interior of the city, it would take some time, and it works. It's functional. It is the easiest to traverse landing zone right now, but still, probably could use a fresh coat of paint, a little bit of a
Yeah,
refresh.
I'm thinking building interiors is what they're waiting for.
Yeah, it's possible. One thing that I'm kind of hoping for when building interiors come online, whenever they do, is that we will finally get missions within cities, because that's like they talk about this new player experience all the time. And the new player experience that they have planned for 319 is very. I'm looking forward to it very cautiously, because I genuinely don't know what to expect from it, because they're like, oh, first 30 minutes player experience in area 18 only. So that doesn't inspire confidence. But once you have building interiors and kind of like general traversal around landing zones, it opens so many opportunities for missions within cities. And I'm talking like, what is the most dirt basic mission you can give a new player? Oh,
Bunker
you're at
mission.
Lorville. Here, deliver this package from
Oh
the
yeah,
central business district to the spaceport,
yeah,
or like to this random building. You don't need your ship for this. You just hop on the tram, or like hop on whatever public transport. Carry the box. Boom, 500 credits.
yep, yeah. I look forward to missions in cities for sure. They'll help with
Yeah.
the new player experience a lot.
And they were talking about them for at some point. They were like, oh, repair missions in cities, and then they kind of went quiet on it.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
and neighborhoods. There's stuff they mentioned
yeah.
before. I think they're waiting to do on that kind of stuff. Well,
Yeah.
Coder, it has been a good talk about 319, possible
Very
delays, possible features. I want to wrap up here real quick with something I'm putting together. It's a special for episode 100, which is coming next week. If you're listening to this after the fact, make sure to check that episode out. I'm getting thoughts from various people for a couple of different things, and wanted to get your thoughts on these last few questions. So, first, I wanted to know what you think sets Star Citizen apart from other games on the market, like the actual secret sauce. It could be a gun that you like. It could be as
For
complex
me,
as their back end framework, whatever it might be.
it's two things really. Number one is the ambition, like the sheer ambition of this project, where like it excites me as a developer that they actually want to do this, and they're actually making steps towards doing this. That's exciting to me as a developer. And number two, just the insane level of detail. In Star Citizen, everything is very carefully created, from the smallest little coffee mug to planets, and they always improve upon it, and it always looks better, bigger, and just more detail. That's what I love. And kind of a bonus one is that really forge your own path. Like nobody says you have to do anything. You can just fly around and take pictures, which is what I did for the first 2 years of me owning Star Citizen.
I don't know, man. Elevators tend to decide whether or not I continue.
That
on
is
my-
true. Elevators are a little bit tricky, but they will get there eventually. Like they will come around to the whole dream of Star Citizen.
Mhm.
But until then, it will be death and destruction every time you take an elevator.
The detail in this game is definitely something to behold. I get what you mean about the ambition, because it's like there's something about getting into a game not because you want to play the game, but just because you want to be present in it.
Yeah.
And I think there are not that many games. There are a lot of games where that feeling comes up. Like I used to get that when I would play the earlier Halos, but not many games actually present it to you. Like something like Red Dead Redemption 2 would. And Star Citizen feels like it does that on such a grand scale with space. It's hard to match that.
Yeah. That's kind of the really setting apart factor of this game. And also, you can't think of a Star Citizen as a game. That's a mistake a lot of people make, or mistake, quote unquote. Star Citizen is a project. It is, yes, it is a game, but there is also Squadron 42, and there's that whole story behind it. And then there's the community and kind of the whole development, and it just amounts to this undertaking of a monumental size. And it just feels very cool and very interesting to be a part of that. As even back then, as a regular backer, just flying around, and now being a content creator and someone who makes community tools and kind of, I don't want to say an ambassador for the game because I mostly complain. But everywhere I go, I'm like, yeah, I do Star Citizen. I play Star Citizen. I'm a Star Citizen content creator. It's great. You should come check it out. Like when I joined the company where I work at, they were doing like a trivia night about the new joiners, and each of us was supposed to write down 2 random facts about ourselves, and everyone else would guess who those facts are for. One of mine was, I am moderately popular in an obscure video game community. And it got me so many questions about what and how and what. And we talked about Star Citizen, and many of these people, they actually heard about it. They're like, "Oh, I didn't really pay attention to it, but now I'm going to check it out because you speak so much about it." And then they're like, "Oh, I watched your videos and I want to try it. Where do I start if I want to try this?"
Oh
So
boy.
yeah. Oh boy.
Mining in a cave. Try that.
Mining in a cave. Yeah, try that.
All right. So that's what really sets it apart for you. Despite all of the inherent frustration that is kind of a requirement of following the game, why have you stuck around with it?
Well, you know how much I like suffering.
We all do.
We all do. But for me, number one, the community. Like the people I have met in this game, yourself included, and many others. You're friends for life. Like people that talk to, people that I would like to hang out with at some point.
Cheers.
Yeah. We gotta get some beers at some point. It's about
Absolutely.
time we got shit faced.
Absolutely. Especially, it's got to be some kind of a Star Citizen themed drink. Just, it has to be.
It's gotta be. So the community and the project as it is, and just it is the first game in my life that I can't put down. Like, sure, I leave, I play other games for weeks at a time when I need a break, but I always come back. And every time I play a different game, I always think like, well, this is what Star Citizen does better. This is why I should come back. And then I come back, I'm like, well, maybe those guys weren't that wrong about it. And like, it gives me the scope of things when I play other games. But I still come back to Star Citizen. I think maybe this thing that sets it apart of why I come back is that I want this game to be better. I want to see this game through because I see the potential, I see the scale, and I want to be a part of it. And maybe that's stupid to some people, maybe that's delusional to some people, but I like it here.
I think some people will call it sunk cost fallacy. I think you're going to find a lot of people who agree with you that don't put that much money into the game, put $45 in, And it just goes back to your first answer. It's why people come to the game. It is inspiring. It's ambitious. It shows a lot of potential, even in the
I mean,
systems
when
we
you
have
think
right
about
now.
it, it's once the game releases, once we're done, or like we're in beta or we're released, those $45, that's all you need. Like if you have the guts and the determination, nothing can stop you. Like you can get whatever you want. You don't need to
Pull
spend
yourself up by
thousands
your
of.
bootstraps.
Yep. And you can like that's the thing. Like the $45. Like there's this vast universe, this vast gameplay options, all the ships, all the locations. Uh, and people sometimes think that you need to spend money to get to it. No, like you don't. $45. It's all you need, and all of this is yours for the taking. And I think that's the big appeal of Star Citizen.
Well,
Like,
go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. I was done.
Well, looking at the model that they've chosen with that, the way that they've kind of they're consistently building a game engine on along with like an alpha of a game that they have to keep running in real time as they build another version of that game. It's just a lot, and the way they've done the releases has gotten on a lot of people's nerves. Do you feel like they're still going about it the right way? Do they need to start to shift focus or shift priorities?
I think a lot of people because a lot of new people came into the project, over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And they're seeing kind of like the last years, I think all of us that have been around for a long time can agree that they were very turbulent and delays and features being pushed back, major changes in the company. Uh, and I think, those of us who've been around a long time, this is no surprise to us. We see it as a bump in the road. But people who came in amongst this and they're expecting an improvement they're not getting, they might be frustrated. But ultimately, I think CAG is doing the best they can do. So they have the quarterly-ish release model going on, and it works. They deliver new content every 3 months, roughly, and it keeps the player base engaged as much as it can. I don't think more frequent releases would help because that would just change, like lower the scope for things, and a lot of things wouldn't make it in, and it would make planning a lot more difficult. Having a longer release window would probably lead to a lot of dead zones in activity, which we already have. That's usually like 2-3 weeks before expected major patch. It's pretty dead
Yeah.
all over the place. So I think they're in a good place right now. They need to optimize some things, like they're doing with the testing process right now and performance. That's good. They needed to do that, but they didn't know they needed to do it until now. They need to sort of rework how they manage releases. Their communication needs a little bit of work, but that's okay. That will probably never be perfect, and it will take them a long time to dial that in properly. Uh, Development wise, they're doing the best they can. Like I think the project that I work on is similar in scale to Star Citizen, and I know the kind of problems that we have, and I imagine CAG are sharing a lot of those problems. So I don't think they can do much better on the development side. They did have two major reorgs on the development over the last 2 years. I don't think that helped particularly. I think the current setup is good. We will see how that goes moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think that was the point I wanted to make. They're doing good. Like CIG is doing good. There are areas that need improvement, but they're
Okay.
overall working towards the goal. It's maybe not the speed that a lot of people are expecting. I personally, what I would like to see is sort of more information on what's happening in a like reading the monthly report is great. You learn a lot of information, but I would like to. I would like if they like brought back the old release tracker for at least partially to where they would maybe not do like multiple quarters forward because that's not tenable given the current state. But if they would just kind of like fill it out first, but like, oh, this is the things that we are tentative about for the next patch, and then just confirm or remove things.
Well, they were supposed to have two patches on at all times, right?
They were,
So like
but
once
I
they
think
ship 318, we should see 320, but we probably won't.
I don't think we will. I think that idea kind of went out the window with 318
Yeah.
because for one, I don't think they know the extent of what will be required to stabilize 318. They don't know how that will affect 319, and they don't know how 319 will affect the items down the line, because I don't think work on a lot of those things has begun yet, so they can't tell. Obviously, there's the long-term stuff that's underway, server meshing, physicalized cargo, economy simulation, that kind of stuff that's long underway. But anything that would actually be relevant for the release tracker, I don't think they know yet.
Yeah,
We
that's fair.
might see it when we hit 319 PTU. They will do 320.
Maybe.
Well,
either way, thanks again for joining me today, Coder. I appreciate you coming by. It's always a great conversation, man. Let the good folks know where they can find you online.
So you can find me on YouTube as TheSpaceCoder. If you go to YouTube/@TheSpaceCoder, you will find me and my complaints with the occasional cinematic and tutorial. Hey, it's constructive criticism. It's allowed.
It works.
Sometimes it works. Yep. And if you're looking for some cool in-game tools, go to armory.thespacecoder.space, where you can find all the information about gear and all that fun stuff that you can find in game. It will tell you the stats, where to buy it, and where to loot it. And now you can also share your loadouts with your friends, which is very cool. And maybe join my Discord so there's more people. Feels a little bit lonely in there nowadays.
Well, all linked below in the show notes, folks.
Yes.
As always, thank you for coming and checking this one out. Check out the ad-free audio podcast if you would like to down below. And I'll see you all next week.